insulated metal water bottle. If I looked at the search term like women's pink rubber coated insulated water bottle, like that's my exact product. Now, the more specific you get to the product, the more specific the search is, the lower your search volume is going to be. So what we always look to do on product launches is like we try and find the intersection between good search volume, and good to us is like maybe even a couple thousand depending on the budget, that also have really good relevancy to the product. Because what you're trying to do is you want to get in front of your exact shoppers. So example would be insulated water bottle is going to be really expensive and not super specific to my product. Like it's kind of specific, but not really specific. I'm trying to say like, okay, where can I start getting super specific to my product, but it's going to have enough search volume that I can get the sales volume that I need. So I would focus more on that versus that I would looking at only search volume. A bit of a technical answer here is we don't quote move them, meaning we're not going to pause the existing keywords. We're simply going to launch them in another match type. Again, make sure to keep the bids lower. Amazon actually, if you read their recommendations, they recommend keeping bids lower on broad and phrase match, even lower than the exact match. When we would launch those is honestly really dependent on performance of the account and availability of the budget. So if you launch a keyword in exact phrase and broad, so you have 50 keywords, right? And you launch them in exact phrase and broad, you technically have, 150 keywords that you've launched. And the potential of broad and phrase to spend could be quite high. So again, you just want to make sure it makes sense. It seems super simplistic, but if you are in a phase where you're struggling to control total ACoS and ACoS, to fix those two numbers, it really means that you have to lower down your ad spend with ideally little to no impact of the total sales or the ad sales in the case of ACoS. If you introduce a whole, again, those 50 keywords in exact phrase and broad, and those you probably need to test and optimize the bids, etc., you're introducing a lot of additional ad spend into the account. So you do want to be aware of that and be careful with that. So that's kind of a benchmark that we use. But overall, I would say, I don't know if I would have like a certain time frame or a frame which I would hold back on. It really is dependent on the performance of the account. Another good question, which best bid strategy for phrase and exacts when you move? So again, we don't really move them. We would simply launch them in addition. We like to separate them by campaign as well. I think it gives us a little bit more control over, say, budgets for things. Now, as far as the bidding strategy, we're a super huge fan of using mainly dynamic down only. If it is a keyword that we want to ensure that we get impressions for, so for our launch keywords, for our main keywords, for anything we're trying to be aggressive with, we prefer a fixed bidding strategy. It's still going to be the same. It's still going to be pick highly relevant keywords. One other tip is pick keywords that fit within the budget of the account that you're launching. So for instance, if I have a couple $100 a day budget versus $50 a day budget, those launches are actually going to look a little bit different because I can't afford that many clicks on a $50 a day budget. Or if I had, a couple $100 or $1,000, I have a lot more room for clicks. So actually, you want budgets to play into your launch strategy. The other thing that you want to keep in mind, do not expect profitability on launch. This is a huge one. There's a lot of people that try and pull back and knee-jerk for profitability right out of the gate. That is not going to happen. The reason why it's not going to happen, and I'll tell you the numbers behind the numbers, is that ACoS is just going to be high on your product launches, and that is a function of two things. One, the aggressive cost per click you have to set to be able to get visibility in the beginning, and two, how low your product conversion rate is going to be, especially if you're launching without reviews. Those two things, once you start to be able to bring your cost per clicks down because you gain momentum or you're optimizing your bids, and then two, once your product conversion rate starts to increase because you're getting those reviews, maybe you're optimizing your listing a little bit more because you've learned more about your target market, that is going to help bring down your target ACoS. So those things, again, conversion rates are going to be low, high cost per clicks. That's actually like the nuts and bolts of why your ads are not profitable, and it's almost unreasonable to expect profitability in the beginning. And that's actually why, if you've ever had a product where you're like, no matter what I do, I cannot seem to bring the ACoS down, struggling here, it's a function of that your conversion rate is remaining low and it's not improving, and your cost per clicks are remaining high and you're not able to improve them due to the market or something else. So again, I would still say pick highly relevant keywords, Also, make sure that whatever keywords that you have fits within your budget. Launch them. Aggressive, sponsored products, exact match, potentially sponsored brand video, exact match if you have the creative. Double down on that for a couple weeks and then start expanding. Hello, and welcome back to another Ask Me Anything Amazon advertising live. We call this Ask Junglr segments. We're here every single Thursday. Last week I was like, hey, we're here every Thursday, rain or shine. And then when we got done with that session, realized, oh, next week is 4th of July. I shouldn't have said every single week, rain or shine, because to be honest, although I did show up for my husband's birthday, I did show up for my 15-year wedding anniversary, even though those both fell on a Thursday. 4th of July, we had family plans, so I was not here last week, but I appreciate everyone who is joining this week. Already seeing some good questions in the chat. Rosina, appreciate you being here. It looks like you already got some really interesting questions. Also got some other interesting questions on talking about match types. Somebody's asking, why do you come up so hard with makeup? Because I'm a girl. I'm a girl's girl. I like rings. I like jewelry. I make makeup. And I'm going to stay true to myself. I'm going to be who I am. I can still rock a red lip and also talk about Amazon ads, and that is who I am. And I appreciate you showing up and asking the questions. Hopefully we can get to some great answers today. Awesome. So politics, which is looks like your name going on YouTube. So I'm going to jump straight into the questions, which again, feel free to drop your Amazon ad questions into the chat. I'll dive into it. All right, pulling up the first one is, if you're using broad match and you add negative targeting into your broad match, does it convert to a phrase or exact match? That's a really interesting question, actually, one that I've never encountered before, but I like the way that you're thinking, politics. Short answer is no. It's not going to convert into one of the other match types. The reason why is because the difference between exact phrase or broad match is how the potential search terms that things can trigger. So for example, an exact match is only going to target that specific search term. Meaning if I'm advertising on baby shoe, it's only going to show up for baby shoe. One thing that people don't really realize is that exact match will also target the plural version. So I could show up on baby shoe, I can show up on baby shoes, I can show up on baby's shoe, right? So there's a lot of variations in exact match. And if you negate the plural version of it, you actually are going to negate the original version. It's a little bit quirky, to be honest. It's somewhat frustrating sometimes, but that's how exact match functions. Now, what phrase match will do is it will put terms either before or after and also target the root word. So you kind of like get exact match and then you get an expansion of that and you can get phrases before and after. Broad match is at the extreme of this, where you can target the exact search phrase that your keyword is. You can target search terms that are doing before and after that particular search phrase. So example would be like pink baby shoe, right? We're adding something on before, pink baby shoes for toddler. That's going to be something before and after. The way the broad match works is it will target all of the above, exact phrase and broad, and it's also going to target things that are, it can flip the order of the word. So instead of baby shoe, it can be shoe baby, like shoe for a baby girl, right? So you can also put words in between. So to flip flop everything, put words in between, and with most recent updates, it can also target what's called like related keywords, which means that Amazon says, and I'm trying to think of a good concept for like baby shoe, but it would be like baby slippers might be a term that the algorithm says, oh, that's related. It's kind of that. They can also target that. And so while you will, if you add a bunch of negative keywords and even negative phrase matches into a campaign or an ad group that contains broader targeting, you will severely restrict what the broad match keyword is going to be able to show up on. So you can block a bunch of stuff, but you're not going to change the nature of how the keyword functions. It can still swap things. It can still make things go on one way or the other. Now you can use negative keywords in a very strategic manner, and I've seen a lot of people use sort of like out of the box methods for adjusting broad match with like a lot of negatives. So I think there's interesting ways to use it, but not going to change the nature of the keyword. But it's a really great question. Other follow-up questions from politics is, why does exact match fail so much? It doesn't necessarily fail. The two functions, I'm assuming you mean fail, but like has really high ACoS, would be my assumption here. And so why exact match might have really high ACoS is for two reasons. One is if the cost per clicks are higher, so you're paying more for each click, or if the conversion rates are lower, meaning it takes more clicks to create a sale. Those two things are going to actually determine your ACoS. And so if it costs you more and you have to get more clicks, that's why it can be really expensive. And so what you're looking to do with exact match is just say, like, one, you need to be really specific on the keywords that you're targeting, and make sure if you're spending aggressively on something, then you want to make sure it's something that converts very well for the product. So you want to start there. And then also you can analyze things like placements or where you're showing up on the search page to determine, like, again, help boost that conversion rate portion of it. And then in terms of cost per clicks, just need to be careful what you're sending bids on. So I know a lot of times we take something that's in phrase match and put it in exact match. We're like, why doesn't it work? In terms of ACoS, that's the nuts and bolts. And so again, bid management, make sure you're targeting the right keywords if you're going to be aggressive. Rosina has a really great question, two-part question. All right, let's get into it. Rosina says, when setting up ACoS performance rules based on strategy and campaign bidding, the strategy displayed value and other bidding strategies changing from dynamic bids down only to dynamic up and down. Can I not have ACoS-based rule strategy or keeping down bid only? I want to up the budget by 20% if the ACoS is under 15% while spending with dynamic down only. When you're talking about your campaign strategy, are you talking about where they adjust the bids and you have like ACoS-based or like ROAS-based bidding? Or are you talking about campaign budget strategy? And to be perfectly frank, we've tested both of these strategies and only use them in very limited cases. And what we actually found is that ROAS-based bidding, in theory, dynamic up and down, and in theory, setting like ACoS or ROAS-based bidding strategy and allowing Amazon to control that should work, because they do have a ton more factors than we have, and they have more like real-time shopper information in every single one of their ad auctions. Unfortunately, what we've found is that they don't really perform all that great. So to be honest, we don't use them. But I don't know if you can clarify it's switching to down only. If that's what Amazon switches it to, I'm not aware of any way that you could get around that. You just kind of have to play with the system. So whenever we have something like that where it's like, darn it, like we can't change this. We just have to work within it. What I say is like, hey, what are the pros and the cons? Does this work? Does this not work? And then I just say like, am I willing to deal with this downside to have this upside? For us, the quote downside on the dynamic up and down bidding and like optimizing for ROAS just hasn't been great, and we haven't seen as big of an upside to compete and make up for that downside. So that's, you know, that's kind of what we've seen, and we don't really use it, to be honest. And I'm trying to figure out my LinkedIn post that I had not too long ago. FYI, if you are using any dynamic up and down bidding, Amazon just announced, and they only sent this out, I think, in their newsletter to the Amazon Partner Network, so we're a part of that, in that for the days of Prime Day, only for Prime Day. If you're unaware of this, listen closely. This will affect you and potentially increase your ad spend exponentially if you have dynamic up and down bidding set in your account and you aren't aware of this. So the way that Amazon does dynamic up and down bidding is they place a greater percentage increase. So they do 100% increase if it's a top of search, but they only up to a 50% increase if it is in a product page or if it's the rest of search placements. However, with their new update, what they're going to be doing is changing rest of search and product pages to also have a potential 100% increase, which means there's a lot more placements on product pages and there's a lot more placements on rest of search. So you could potentially have like exponential increases on your cost per clicks in dynamic up and down bidding. So if you have that, highly recommend that you would double check that in your account. And if it makes sense to, I would recommend potentially switching to a dynamic up and dynamic down only bidding, or potentially fixed bids, depending on what you want to get out of that particular campaign. Which is why we actually have a checklist. By the way, if you want to get access to this, you can go to junglr.com/Prime Day strategy. I will drop this in the chat. If you want to get access to this sheet, but part of like our pre-Prime Day checklist and like our to-dos and the stuff that we look at is we look at all the campaign bidding strategies to make sure we have things in place that make sense for the account. And that's really important to do. And depending on how many questions, we might also go through some Prime Day strategies today, or if anyone has any questions, because Prime Day is next week. So we're definitely full force geared up for that on our team. Oh, cool. All right. Another great question from Ultima. What is the best way to use product targeting? Great question. I want my ads to show up right underneath the competitor at the top. What settings get me there, and what strategies guide to how I change the PPC bits? Question on that. When you say you want your products to right underneath the competitor at the top, I'm assuming you're talking about, let me find a product online that has this sort of placement in it. My guess is you're talking about this right here. Oops, let me get rid of that question. If you're talking about this placement right here or this placement right here on the product page, those are sponsored display ads. Also, this one right here is a sponsored display ad as well. So if you wanted to show up on a specific competitor and this is what you're going after, you want to set up a sponsored display ad. You want to do ASIN targeting, and you want to do exact ASIN targeting. You don't want the expanded ASIN, you want the exact ASIN targeting on this particular competitor. And then as far as if you wanted to make sure you show up more, I would put optimize for page visits is what I would recommend, not optimize for conversions. That should give you a little bit, and then of course you just want to put high bids on that. So I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about. If you were talking about where we scroll all the way down and you're looking at these, because these are sponsored ads right here. These are sponsored product ads. And again, you want to pick sponsored product ads
product targeting to exact match targeting, because that will show you up on this specific ASIN. You don't want to do expanded targeting because that's going to show you up on this ASIN and then also a ton of other ASINs. You have less control over where you show up. And then if you want to show up a lot and your goal is impressions, then I would put a fixed bidding strategy. Again, fixed bidding might cause you to like increase a little bit how much ad spend you have. But if your goal is simply impressions and to maximize how often you show up, you want to do fixed bidding strategy. And then I would potentially look at doing a placement percentage adjustment. And what you want to do is just optimize your bids for whatever is going to give you more impressions on product pages for that campaign. So hopefully that answered your question. If you have any follow-up questions on these, please make sure to leave them in the chat. All right, let's see. Rosina followed up with when adjusting bids. Okay, so you're doing that optimized for ROAS bid adjustment. To be honest, we tested this. Now, this was when it first came out. Maybe something has changed. To be honest, we didn't find that the juice was worth the squeeze in that particular fashion. So what I would say is, I don't think it's a bad idea to test it. I would not test it on my priority campaigns, because what we found is that actually what happened is it kind of decreased how many sales we were getting for that particular campaign. So for us, juice wasn't worth the squeeze. If you do a test and it does work, please revert back to me. I would love to be proven wrong, because again, in theory, optimizing for ROAS and maximizing sales at that particular ROAS, phenomenal idea. In practice, whatever algorithm they have doesn't really seem to get the job done. Abdul, question, is catch-all campaigns effective? Yes, absolutely. They are wildly effective. And your question on what should your starting bids be, somewhere between 15 and 30 cents. And another part to the question, should I target all of my products in that campaign? Yes, you want to put all of your products in that campaign. And let me also pull up for you the video that I have, and I'm going to drop it into the chat. Looks like you are also watching this on YouTube, which means that you have access to YouTube. And I filmed a video on our YouTube channel. It is called, I believe it's like the campaign that prints money, because to be honest, these campaigns pretty much print money. And I'm going to take this question down right here. Catch all auto, campaign that prints money. This will go in depth on starting bids, what those starting bids look like, how not to screw it up. There is a way that you can get amazing results here, and you can absolutely screw it up. Don't do that. Watch the video. And if you have any follow-up questions on that, leave it in the chat. Oh, I like this one. Joseph W. Always here with the great questions. Thanks for showing up, Joseph. Hey, how many orders per keyword is enough to do harvesting from auto broaden phrase? Great question. So I had him on the show a little while ago, Sean Smith. He's kind of like the OG in the space. If you don't know him, he's got some really great content, and he had a really good thought on this, and I agree with him. So if you want to be more certain that a keyword is going to convert, 3 orders. 1 to 2 orders can potentially be a fluke, meaning, somebody just converted once. Am I confident that this keyword is going to convert for me always? Not really. 2, maybe I hit lightning struck twice, right? And it's not going to strike again. 3 orders, you're like, yeah, I have more consistency here, right? Where you completely throw out this rule is if you launch on a new product and you're like, dang it, nothing's converting. I've only got a couple things that are working, and they only got like 1 or so orders. In that case, I'm just saying what works. So that's like the outlier, which honestly, in some cases, things don't always go according to plan. You gotta throw out your best case scenario playbook and go with what works. So in that case, I would be less selective. The more keywords that I have to choose from in my search term reports, the more picky I'm going to be. So if I have a ton of different keywords and I'm like, oh, wow, I have a ton that are over 3 orders, right? Maybe I have like 50 keywords that are over 3 orders. Great. I might also in that point, be a little bit more picky and say, okay, where do I have keywords that have over 3 orders and also have a profitable ACOS? Oh, wow, I have like 15 of those. Great, I can afford to be picky. On the other end of the scenario, what if I do that analysis and I'm like, I have 2 keywords that converted and nothing else, right? What other data do you have to go off of? I need to start getting eyeballs on this product. And so in that case, I'd probably be less selective. But a benchmark rule, 3 orders, you can be more confident. Ahmad, how can we reduce the CPCs of our exact match campaign using the up and down bidding strategy to lower our ACOS while maintaining good orders and conversion rate? I'm going to think out of the box here. I wouldn't use up and down. If your goal is to reduce the CPCs, dynamic up and down bidding increases your CPCs. Now, it can also increase your conversion rate, which in some points can offset your CPCs. But what we've seen is that historically, dynamic up and down bidding increases CPCs. I would change it to a down-only bid strategy, and I would also focus on bid management. How do you lower CPCs? You lower the bid. Simple. The question that you're going to have to figure out, and this is what makes this not so black and white, and also it makes bidding adjustments so dang difficult, and everybody wants a secret hack, like what is the best ultimate bidding strategy, is that at what point do you lower your bids so much that you no longer get impressions? And you no longer get traffic to the listing. That's the thing that you have. That's what a good bidding strategy does, is it kind of helps ride that line. So change the dynamic down only, see how that goes, also potentially lower the bid, and then watch your impressions and make sure that you can, again, you're not completely cutting off all impressions by doing that. Rosina says, seeing impression count discrepancy for my keyword between search query report and campaign manager, over 15,000 for a single keyword exact match campaign for the same week. Is such a discrepancy common? Yes. Yes, it is. The reason why there's a discrepancy is how the data is calculated. So when you have search query performance reports, it only includes the data that is on the specific search page in that grid. It doesn't include any widgets, which sponsored products will target widgets. It doesn't include product pages or all of the other placements that happen. So yes, is that normal? 100%. When in doubt, what you want to figure out, if you want to go on the weeds, or you can just hear me say like, yeah, it's totally normal, don't freak out about it, and just go with that answer. But whenever I'm trying to figure out what's going on, what you want to do is go and read the glossary for whatever the thing is. So when I was looking at Product Opportunity Explorer, when I was starting to explore that, I went and read the definitions glossary. When I wanted to explore search query performance report and what the heck was going on, I went and read the search query, like the metrics glossary. What is that? What that's going to do is explain to you how each, like what each number means and how it's calculated and how Amazon is viewing it. That's how I know what I know about how it's adjusted. So hopefully that was helpful. Yeah, totally normal. It's kind of frustrating. All right, Joseph in with some great questions. When you have a campaign with a relatively high CPC compared to overall CPC, but the conversion rate is also higher, can you argue it is worth it since better conversion rate helps for organic more than lower conversion rate campaign? Joseph, I love your questions. And yes. So what we would do in this scenario is if you have a higher CPC, but that's offset by a higher conversion rate, oftentimes the ACOS is fine. So there's 2 ways you can do. One, you can just optimize for whatever that ACOS is going to turn out to be, which could be beneficial. Or 2, if you're treating this as a ranking keyword, then what I would do is track the rankings, validate it, right? My theory is that if I have better conversion rates on this particular search page, I'm going to rank higher. Does that in fact work when I track my rankings over time if I maintain aggressive advertising on this particular keyword? That's how we would view it. But you are absolutely thinking like a strategic advertiser, Joseph. I always love your questions. Amara says, hey, how are you doing? I'm back. Amazing. I appreciate it. Great questions. Amara says, perfect. Thank you. Awesome. Glad we were able to answer your question. I appreciate everyone joining in. Politics, you're in with some interesting questions that are like not exactly detailed, so I'll give you the best answer I can. Bid placements, which to choose, whichever one is performing best. Honestly, there is no right or wrong answer here. The answer is it depends. What does it depend on? It depends on the data. So we don't typically say like, oh, top of search is best. Top of search is best in certain scenarios, which typically is ranking campaigns. Otherwise, it's what performs. Where do we get the best bang for our buck? And then that's where we put our ad dollars. And if you had to, in a nutshell, say what is the best Amazon ad strategy, is where you get the best bang for your buck, put your ad dollars there. Now, how to do that, where to do that, how to figure that out. That's why we have this show, so you guys can show up and ask questions, because it gets pretty in the weeds and detailed. But in a nutshell, that's what we're trying to do. Where are we getting the best return? Put the money there. Joseph says, if I take a 60-day ad book flow report, is it safe to significantly reduce bids on those with very high A costs and clicks and 0 sales because I had 60 days chance to improve but haven't? Yes. Yes, Joseph, I like the way you're thinking. So the answer is yes to 0 sales, because that's pretty obvious. I would be careful with the ones that have high A cost. The reason being is because it is possible that something could have started to get a better A cost, and if you looked at a shorter one, like maybe it started to perform better in the last 7 days and you don't want to cut things off. But what I will tell you is, if you have targets that have minimal orders and a lot of clicks in a long date range. So for example, if I had a target that had 50 clicks and only a single order, providing, you know, my conversion rate was better on average than like say a 0.2 or something. Like if I have a 2% conversion rate, then I need 50 clicks on average to make a sale. So that would be kind of quote normal for me. But if I have something that's like an outlier in terms of it's got a crap ton of clicks and I only have 1 or 2 orders on this, I can be relatively certain that it's got a bunch of clicks and it's not converting a lot for me. So I would be fine with optimizing those. I would be careful on optimizing things that say I had like 50, 60 orders in this date range. You know, that's about an order a day, or like even more, even hundreds of orders. Because if I say, oh, it has high A cost, well, it's still making a lot of orders for me. So there, I would want to be more certain that it hasn't like started to work or something, if that makes sense. But the 0 sales, 100%, you can cut those off. Amara says, if we aren't registered for Prime Day deals, will we see more sales? What is your experience with this? Yes, but your conversion rates will not be as high. So therefore, you may or may not get as good or as high as amount of orders. You don't have to be registered for Prime Day deals. You can actually set up Prime Day coupons. Now, caveat here is you have to have at least a 20% discount applied to be able to be like eligible to have like Prime Day discount like flag on your products. But those you can totally set up last minute, even day of. We had one client who he wasn't even necessarily like a typical like Prime Day type products. He wasn't home goods. He wasn't electronics or anything that you typically see people wait for Prime Day, but he went in like last minute and set a 20% coupon and actually did very, very well for that. So I would see if that's possible. Again, it depends on your margins. Not everybody, it makes sense to set up a 20% coupon. If you can, do that. If not, fine. One of the main things that increases when you do for Prime Day is the traffic. So you will benefit on the increase in traffic. The question just is, can your conversion rate sustain having a higher cost per clicks? And, what's your conversion rate going to be versus your competition? Those two things are going to determine like how well or not well you do. Politics says, is bid placement available for sponsored brands and display? No, not the same as it is for sponsored products. There are placement percentages inside of sponsored brand ads. Not many people talk about those, but the way that it works in sponsored brand ads is they allow you to decrease your bid. So you set the percentage decrease for placements that are not the top of search placement. And that one's a little bit more in the weeds, and we have done less testing there. But no, it's not the same as in sponsored product ads. Joseph said, what do you use, if any, dynamic up and down or placement modifiers, and when should I use which? Good question. So we rarely use dynamic up and down, to be honest. I would treat that more as a, hey, I want to test this in this interesting scenario and see if it will work better than like, I'm going to massively apply dynamic up and down to XYZ, all these campaigns, right? As far as the placement percentages, we would typically use those on, say, like ranking campaigns if we want to use top of search, or on anything that we know performs well. So if you like so for us, it's like a retroactive analysis. We launch with like good starting bids, see what performs, and then we'll also go back through and we'll analyze the placement percentages and say, oh, this is working well, and say product pages is crushing it. Then we might put a small placement percentage on say the product pages. When I say small, I mean like 10 or 20%, if that, maybe it's a 5%, and then see how that performs and then go from there. Would be our methods. I know a lot of people lean really heavy into placement percentages, and they can work well if you keep on top of them. So you can be really careful there. Cool. Joseph, in with the questions today. Awesome. 2, how does attribution work? Do clicks get recorded right away? It's just the orders that gets updated 7 days later. And what is last click model? If someone clicks sponsored product, sponsor brands and sponsor product, will I only be charged for the sponsored product click? This is a great question and dive deep into the algorithm. Okay, so let's talk about attribution, clicks versus sales, and then we'll talk about the last click attribution. So with the orders, that is exactly what happens. So the click gets recorded on the day of the, whenever they actually click the ad, and that's when you get charged. And then if they come back and order, so for sponsored products, it's a 7-day window. For sponsored display and sponsored brand ads, it's a 14-day window. So if they go and they purchase 7 days or within 14 days of when they last clicked on your ad, and that order will be attributed to the purchase day. And so that'll like retroactively update. So orders / sales are the last thing to fully get updated inside of Amazon advertising. Spend is more real time. It's not fully real time, but it's more real time. And then orders, again, take a little bit longer. So that's the answer to the first question. The second question is, what is last click attribution? That means that so you will get charged twice. That's true. Every time somebody clicks your ad, you get charged, as long as it's a legitimate click. Amazon actually flags clicks that are called like illegitimate. So if you have a competitor that's continuously clicking on your stuff, or if there's like a bot or something, Amazon will actually flag those and make sure that you're not charged for them. There is a report in sponsored products that will like show you these and like just say like, hey, we refunded you these. That's why your number of clicks may or may not change, ongoing. But what happens is that the last ad to get the click, so if somebody clicks on your sponsored brand ads and then clicks on your sponsored product ad and then purchases, that order is going to show up on your sponsored product ad, not your sponsored brand ad. Although they did click on your sponsored brand ad and you still did get charged for that. There are some reports that help you analyze this. You do have to currently, from my knowledge, you do have to have access to DSP to be able to go through them. It's called like Amazon Marketing Cloud. You can sort of look at, they call it like path to purchase and stuff. Like it's a little bit more in the weeds, but if you want to just know how the system works, that's how it works. Oh, interesting. Ahmad said once converted to down only, conversion rate drops. interesting. So then my question would be, does the conversion rate dropping actually increase ACoS, or is it pretty much the same? Is ACoS pretty much the same? So in your question, you said goal was to decrease cost per click. Even though conversion rate dropping, my answer still stands if the goal is to decrease the cost per click. Now, if the actual goal is to decrease ACoS, and you say that, hey, it performs better with a dynamic up and down, then just focus on bid management. Would be my answer to that. Cool. Rosina says, under phrase match campaign search terms, I now see it's possible to update bids for individual search terms within a single phrase match. Huh. I have not seen this, so I cannot confirm it. It is true. Let me, all right, I'm going to stop my screen share. I'm going to go check an account right now because it is insanely interesting. So I do know that if you're talking about going into the search term tab inside of the ad console, I do know that it is possible to see what the bid is at the targeting level. And I'm trying to remember if you were able to or not. I think you're able to click on that. Maybe that's what you're talking about, is you're able to click on that and then update the bids from there. However, if that is the case, and it's been a hot minute, I'm trying to log in and see if I can replicate what you're talking about. If that is the case and it does update the bid, what you're actually doing is being able to change the bid on that keyword from within the search term tab. So although it would look like you're changing the bid, let me find one. So, I mean, it's going to look like you're changing the bid inside of, like, for that individual search term, but what it actually means is you're changing the bid for the actual keyword. But you can do it from a different page, if that makes sense. I believe it's been a hot minute since I went through and I messed around with that. So let me know if that's what you were talking about. Yeah, I'm looking at it right here. So you can, yes, you can. But if you notice, if you look at the target bid, it says bid, and you're updating the bid, and that's not on that individual search term. It's on the actual keyword is what you're updating. But yeah, it is funky. I agree with you. It's not really well explained. So, all right. Next question. When running sponsored display ads, wouldn't it always be smart to do the longest look back window? What is the difference between a 30 and 90 day look back window besides the day length? It is a targeting difference. Yeah, so it honestly depends on the product, right? So you just want to think about it from the shopper experience. So here, I consulted with a brand who had a product that people purchased repeatedly in the summer, right? He was doing targeting, and he was retargeting a 30-day look back window in his sponsored display ads. And I was like, hey, your shoppers typically purchase once a year, right? So I recommended, I said, hey, why don't you test 180 and like a 365 look back window from, the purchase retargeting, because you tell me people repurchase, right? Well, if you have a product that is maybe a high-end product, maybe it's super expensive, and what you find is that a lot of people get to the listing, but not letting people repurchase, you might want to do a retargeting campaign that is not retargeting people who purchased, but retargeting people who landed on the product but did not purchase. And you want to look at that on say last 7 days, right? Because they've been browsing, that your customers tend to browse around and then later on go back and make their purchasing decision. So they're a shorter date range because, if you go too long, right, they might have already made a decision. So you want to catch them at the point of where they're still in that decision-making process. So they're a shorter date range. So I'd say it's not really a best or worst. It's what makes sense for your product given what you understand about your customer, is what I would say. All right, share. To get rankings, we often use exact match targeting. How do you see negating targets, keyword and phrase match campaign, and targeting the same keyword using exact match? Negating that keyword and phrase match. I wouldn't negate it. Honestly, I wouldn't negate it. A lot of times you can get a lower cost per click within phrase match sometimes. And there's sometimes that phrase match just works better. You won't like be double charged for that search term. You shouldn't run into any issues with overlap. So I wouldn't have any issue running those two in parallel. My answer. All right, Mohammed, great question. What would be your PPC launch strategy for a product that is not fresh but have some reviews and ratings? You want to start your PPC upon it. What is going to be your strategy, especially about selecting keywords? Whether you start the high front, oh my goodness, there's so much I can get into on this. Oh, it's so extensive. Okay, so what I'm going to give you, and I'm going to drop it in the chat, Mohammed, we have I put it out. It is the most extensive information I have ever released publicly about Amazon advertising. It is completely free. I need to find the link for you. Give me 1 second. I'm going to drop it in the chat. You have to enter in your email to get into the course, but that's going to give you way more information than I'm going to be able to give you in this next little snippet. So if I had to condense into a nutshell the most important things that I talk about for like a literal hour and then have 2 other supplementary videos going along with that, as well as 2 free tools that will help you like forecast and do keyword research. So highly recommend. I just dropped the link in the chat. That being said, or if you guys can't find the link, feel free to DM me on whatever platform and I will give you the link. Focus on sponsored products first. Use exact match keywords. Focus on focus on relevancy to the product. And again, that course goes all the way through. I like screen share because so many people get stuck on relevancy. Like I screen share and show you what relevancy is. Focus on relevancy. So basically think, where are shoppers looking for my specific product? And you want to leverage ads to get your product in front of those shoppers. And trying to think if there's anything else stick to fixed bidding strategy for those campaigns. Only advertise 1 product in those. 1 product being 1 parent ASIN. So there are some reasons where you can group child ASINs if you don't have data. Sounds like you have data, so I would go with the best performing child ASIN. I would advertise that specifically. And then your goal, again, is just to get impressions and eyeballs. And the more specific you can get with your keyword research, the better eyeballs you're going to get on the product, the better performance you're going to see, and the easier it's going to be to rank. You said focusing on the high search volume, medium search volume. So we went over match types. As far as search volume and number of keywords, those 2 things, to be honest, need to be shaped by your budget and what you can afford. If you have a limited budget, do not go after the 100,000 search volume keywords. You don't have the budget for it. If I have $50 a day to spend, I can guarantee you that 1 single keyword is going to eat up my entire ad budget, and it's just not going to go that far. So I would recommend focusing on the stuff that you can afford, shaping your keyword list based on your available resources, i.e. your cash flow, and ad budgets, and then focus on relevancy, sponsored products, exact match, fixed bids. But way more in-depth information in that course, so I would recommend checking that out. All right, looks like you asked the same question a couple places. Yeah, Rosanna says, I'm looking at search terms. I now see the adjustable bid options for search terms in phrase match. Yeah, Rosanna, I see the same thing as well. I'm going to test it really quick. So if I click update bid here inside of the search term tab, and then I go back to my targeting, what I find, and give me a second because I got to filter for this, is that that bid inside of my targeting tab actually updated. So I agree with you, Roseanne. It's so confusing and it's not really well, like, like it's hard to understand it. But like when you change that bid, what it does is it actually change the bid on that keyword. And which gets really confusing, right? Because you might like adjust the bid on a bunch of different search terms that are like triggered through that keyword. What you'll find is that keyword bid just keeps changing. So it's nice to be able to like, oh, we can update the bids right from there. But it's, yeah, we don't really use that often. But I agree with you, it's confusing, right? It just says Amazon counts ad orders if someone purchases a different item within the 7 days from my brand. That's true for sponsored brands and sponsored display ads. For sponsored product ads, I believe last I checked, don't quote me on this because it could be wrong, I think it's mainly other variations on that listing is what's purchased. But you know where you can actually check this out is if you download a purchased product report, download a purchased product report, sponsored product ads. They also have a sponsored brand ads purchase product report, and on sponsored display, I think it's an attributed sales attribution report, something like that. It will actually show you like what product was clicked and then what product was ultimately purchased, and you can cross-check that with a business report to verify that it was within your brand. Because fun fact here's a fun one for you. If you are advertising using sponsored brand ads for underneath a brand where there's other resellers. So one that we have is we have a couple brands that sell licensed products. So technically they're selling under like Disney, but you know how many freaking products on Amazon are like Disney brand products, right? But those are not actually Disney themselves. Gotten licenses to be able to use a Disney characters, logos, etc. on their products. Well, if you are allowed to connect, if Amazon is connected, the fact that you're selling Disney products, you actually could be selling or making sales for other sellers who are using the Disney brand. There's actually a way to check that. And that is using I believe it's the sponsored brand purchase product report. And I actually have a video, although I would have to find it. All right, let me find it for you. This video right here, where I say you're making sales for someone else, sponsored brand ads, I actually have a tool there, a spreadsheet where you can like enter in your product catalog and it will cross-check it and it will give you, quote, your real ACOS. Meaning what would my ACOS actually be if I don't factor in those sales for the other brand? And does it still make sense for me to run sponsored brand ads? We actually had to like go through and figure that out because again, we're selling for people who are selling licensed products. So, fun things when you get into attribution. Lots of fun things. Rosina, my product is a high ticket apparel with good margins. Awesome. Shall I use dynamic up and down for better results or stick to dynamic down only? Alert, conversion rates for high ticket apparels, 2 to 3% only at max. I know, goodness, we target, we sell clothing, also a little bit of higher ticket, like sometimes even in those categories, 1% on some things, which is crazy, right? You have to get 100 clicks to generate an order. What I would say, Rosina, is I would just test it for a select number of campaigns. The question would be, does the conversion rate increase? And does that increase in conversion rate offset probably the increase you're going to see in your cost per click is what you're looking for. So just like, does it result in better ACOS? Does it result in better orders or does it not? And you can always switch it back. So I mean, my gut feeling is you might have better results just by managing it with the bids. But given how low and how many clicks you have to get in that category, it might be worth it if you can get better orders. Ultimate ratio. Rough rule of thumb. How much budget would you need to go after 100K keywords? Do the math. That's what I would say. So how do you do that math, right? All right, let's assume we have 100,000 search volume. What kind of click rate do I assume I'm going to get on that? Well, I'm going to multiply it by, let's see, we get 1% click-through rate, which is a really good click-through rate. Honestly, we have 1,000 search volume. If I'm assuming that it's going to cost me, so I have 1,000 clicks, and I'm paying $1 a click, that means I have $1,000 of budget, right? So do the math, figure out what the search volume looks like. How many clicks do you think you're going to get from those search volume? How much do you think you're going to pay for all of those clicks? And that's your forecast. Now, how many clicks you actually get, what your click-through rate actually is, what the cost per click actually is. Those are the things that are actually going to change the forecast and make them, make that forecast right or wrong. Not right or wrong, because it's not technically wrong. It would be accurate. How accurate your forecast inputs are is going to be how accurate your forecast outputs are. So, but that's how you do it. All right, Joseph, are you using Helium 10 keyword tracker to track organic ranking and sponsored ranking? Yes, we are. We are using Helium 10. All of the agencies and people I talk to have a love-hate relationship with Helium 10 keyword tracker. They're like, I wish it had improvements. I wish it was better, but honestly, it's kind of the best we got right now on the market, and that's kind of where we are right now. Depending on if you already have Helium 10, great, just use that. Right? If you already have the keyword tracker. If you do not have Helium 10 and you're looking for a more economical keyword tracker, because you have to have a certain plan to be able to purchase like the higher tier to be able to get that keyword tracker, you actually can use something called DataRova. Really like them, use them. We kind of use both. To be honest, I like the grid that DataRova displays. Also, heard really good things. I know if you're already using Data Dive, which again depends on your, how much you want to pay for the tools. Data Dive now has keyword ranking integrated into their tool, so you might find that useful. It's really kind of like if you already have Helium 10, again, I would just use that because it does work. And the other thing that we like is I like the way Helium 10 displays, allows you to track competitors and like displays it on a chart graph, to be able to, you can kind of track where you're doing versus your competition. So that's pretty nice. Awesome. Rosina says, awesome show. Thank you for all the help. Of course. So seriously, I would not be here if you guys did not show up and ask amazing questions every single week. This is fabulous. You guys make me think. You guys keep me on my toes. Really, you keep me on my toes, Rosina. Especially with those new ones. Like sometimes I have to go in and check Amazon and be like, wait, I thought I saw that, right? How does this work? So I appreciate you guys keeping me frosty, keeping me on my toes. Ultima says, excellent info. Thanks so much for the help. Of course, it is my absolute pleasure. So this has been awesome. So for context, if anyone wants to watch the replay, or hey, if you're listening to the replay, these are going to be available on all the streaming channels, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. We also put this out in the form of a podcast. So our podcast is, if you go to junglr.com/live, although we're in all of the podcast streaming channels. If we go here, you'll be able to watch all of these. So we got a lot of them going back, and this is of course available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the places, so you can listen and get the most out of your Amazon advertising. So as always, I really, really appreciate you guys showing up. If anyone is interested in having someone like us who's super strategic, super in the weeds, working to grow Amazon ad accounts, highly recommend you hit up our website, junglr.com. Again, this is if you have a brand, if you're nearing or at the 7-figure mark, or if you have ambitions to get to the 7-figure mark, book a call. you'll get on the phone with me. We'll talk strategy, we'll talk ads, and we'll talk how to hit your goals. So I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you guys same place, same time next week. And with that, I will catch you in the next one.
And that wraps up this episode of the Ask Junglr Amazon Advertising Podcast. I hope you found these insights and strategies helpful in your Amazon PPC journey. Remember, if you have a burning Amazon ad question that you'd like answers to, head over to junglr.com/live to join our next live Q&A session. Until next time, keep optimizing those ads and stay hungry.